Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's day 194, the finale of this growing Yerba Mansa from seed series. Despite all the fertilization that I did for this and other plants, this has not grown much. Growth has been very sparse. I can tell that maybe there's not enough sun. The leaves have very long petioles and the leaves themselves are not that big and robust. Unlike many specimens I encountered in various riparian zones, swampy looking habitats, or in the dry mountains, these leaves are very sparse. Sure, there's been a lot of runners, but growth has not been great, especially since I moved this pot down from the observation table when I applied all that, I don't know what color you would call that, sort of a reddish wood stain to that table. So the leaves broke when I tried to remove that first one. So it's clear that the leaves break off en masse altogether, and they separate very easily from the root system, which is like this. The roots themselves are sort of like rope, or should I say string rather, because they're not that thick. There are no rhizomes. I'm very disappointed in that. They sort of have a reddish tint to them. I've seen pictures online of mature rhizomes, and they have these beautiful reddish pink bands to them, in addition to the generic sort of white and tannish color that the roots have. So that's what it looks like if you don't break the leaves off. So in this case, it's arguable that the shoot system is bigger than the root system, but the root system has a lot more mass. These roots are long and stringy, they go deep, and you can do quite a bit of pulling, but often what happens is you're just going to break off the root system, like in this case. So this is the central plant. It has a lot of runners, so I had to reach in there and pull all the roots out together. These roots actually extend all the way into the bottom watering tray, as I found out later. So they hardly have any lateral development. They mostly just go down, and that makes a little bit of sense when I think about it, because these plants can grow very close in proximity to each other in the wild. So instead of having shallow and laterally expanding roots that all tangle and compete with each other, they opt to go down as deep as possible to find sources of water. Sometimes these plants grow in mountain or valley meadows. They don't have a readily available water source, such as being in a riparian zone where the soil is constantly waterlogged. So you can see here a runner established its own root at the side of the pot, where all the runners were circling around the pot. I noticed this maybe 2 weeks ago when I tried to readjust some of these runners. The runners grew some leaves, but I think the limiting factor here for this pot was insufficient sunlight. This is a full sun plant. I know it does grow in riparian zones, like I showed in the first episode, where there is a tree canopy limiting the amount of sunlight that gets through. So you can see some of the pink toms there that the ants moved around previously and buried. That seems very fresh still, so I just scattered that, and there are some old seed husks from other species in there. But overall, this dirt is very, very nice. It's very fine. I think this may have been a pot where I filtered out all the larger wood particles and bark and whatnot, and little pebbles. So it was the perfect level of dampness, and it was cool to the touch. So I'm going to reuse this for a future plant growing series that I'll start very soon. And I just want to mix everything up. I'm sure the nutrition level in the soil is quite high since I fertilized so much, but since the sun was a limiting factor, the plant just kind of looks spindly, all of these plants, and I think there may have been a little bit of competition with each other, and that may have limited them, but seeing as how the root systems were not that developed, in my opinion, I think there definitely could have been a lot more development if I had this in full sun, but I can't do that on this balcony. It only receives afternoon sun. So that's what all the roots look like. They're breakable, but they're otherwise very flexible and supple. It's a very interesting plant. It's a shame that this is probably the least watched series in recent memory, if not all time, for my channel. But it doesn't produce foliage fast enough for you to constantly be harvesting leaves as, say, spinach. The growth rate is sluggish, on par with cacti and succulent species, even though it's not either of those. So thanks for watching this plant growing series. I look forward to providing you with a lot more fresh content in the future. I'll be transitioning to mostly fruit trees, and I hope you'll stay tuned to my channel.